Hi, I'm Dempsey Pula, and this week I'm reviewing. Now before I start off, as always, I just want to take a quick second to remind you guys to make sure you hit that like button if you like today's video, and if you're new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well for more new movie-related content weekly. But without further ado, let's jump into today's film. Family Squares was directed by Stephanie Laing and features an ensemble cast consisting of Elsie Fisher, Judy Greer, and Dowd, Henry Winkler, and so many others. The film follows members of a large family as they attempt to put their differences aside and plan a funeral for their recently deceased matriarch over Zoom. Now, I know we've had our fair share of COVID-themed movies in the mere 2 years since the pandemic started, but if I'm being honest, this is certainly one of the more entertaining ones that I've seen. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that this is probably my favorite since Host. You guys remember Host, right?
Emma, turn the filters off. Come on.
On top of having a fairly simple and relevant storyline that's also super relatable, I cannot emphasize enough that the ensemble here is unmatched. There are so many different plot lines and characters introduced here that I think in any other film might be hard to follow or care for, yet the chemistry and charm between everyone is so great that you cannot help but fall in love and to be enthralled by everyone and everything that happens. I found myself, by the end of the film, just so attached to these people that I wanted to spend more time with them, and that's always a great thing. Imagine if Arrested Development was a movie, or if the Bluths from Arrested Development tried to do a Zoom call. That's probably the best way I can describe this film. Not only is this family dysfunctional, but everything they do is ridiculous. And honestly, one of the things that I appreciated the most about it was that it was like working class dysfunctional, where the Bluths are rich, although it is kind of hinted at in the film that this family might also be rich, but that's like a totally other thing. I just loved how grounded these people were, that they were still ridiculous, but at a level that most people will certainly relate to, as I also said before. But another reason this film actually reminded me of Arrested Development was because of its snarky-ass narrator, who, I will not spoil, but is played by a pretty big name. And over the course of the film, I was like, I know that voice. And when I saw it in the credits, I almost couldn't believe that it was real. So yeah, it's another exciting thing you should know about this film. And another really humorous aspect is that as everything's going on top of everything, on top of the pandemic, on top of the death, on top of all the ridiculous antics that this family gets into, there's somebody just throwing in their 2 cents, and you don't really find out who it is in relation to the family until like later on in the film, but it's also really fantastic. Speaking more about the cast specifically, I loved the comedic turn from Dowd in this. I'm so used to seeing her be the ominous, serious character in almost everything she's in, so for her to play such a silly character here just proved to me that she really can do no wrong. Additionally, I enjoyed seeing Elsie Fisher back in the spotlight. I know she recently did another film that I will not talk about because here she more than makes up for it. She proves that truly her performance in 8th grade was not a one-off, and that she still has a very commanding presence. As a matter of fact, she plays arguably the most important person in the film. She is the granddaughter of the matriarch who passes away, but she's also the closest person to the matriarch, and so throughout the film you see her doing everything in her power to make sure that everything is as perfect as the matriarch would have wanted it, and sometimes this puts her in a situation where she kind of has to be the leader, or the most adult person in the room, especially when everybody else keeps on reverting back to their immaturity and their very selfish tendencies. So I found that to be very fascinating and an interesting hat for her to wear, because that's unfortunately a lot of the times a position that kids are put in. And it's not rarely, or it is rarely captured on screen. And I appreciated that. So yeah, really enjoyed her in the film. And I know that between her and Dowd, that's only 2 actors in the film compared to the massive ensemble that I keep on hinting towards. But trust me when I say this is really one of the best comedic casts I've seen in a very long time. With all that being said, I do want to say I did have some cons with the film, some very small cons. The first being, obviously, with a film like this, with so many plot lines and characters, it is going to be hard to round everything out. And I'm not saying that the film doesn't round everything out. I'm not saying that anything was left incomplete. Rather, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, I felt as if, just as I felt that I wanted some more time with these characters, I felt like the film as a whole could have benefited with a little bit more time to resolve some of the things that it establishes. Prime example, towards the end of the film, there's a massive revelation involving two family members, and it is, I guess, concluded. They do reach a resolution, and the characters get their closure or whatever, but the way in which it's done, I felt, was a bit too rushed. I mean, I mentioned Host earlier. Host, I think, is a lot more accurate, or real-time accurate, where it kind of feels like it's an actual single Zoom call. It takes place like approximately over the course of 40 minutes. Here, this one, even though it's done on Zoom, it takes place over several Zoom calls. So it's not like everything had to be squished into one session. So I feel like the film definitely could have afforded to add a few additional minutes to let some of those smaller storylines breathe a little. The film clocks in at a little over an hour and a half, so yeah, an additional 10 minutes, I think this film would have been perfect. But sadly, as I said, there are some things, in addition to that one plot line that we see towards the end of the film, there are other smaller ones that are brought up, and then they're kind of resolved quickly, and it feels like it's done just for the sake of time. One other thing that I didn't really like, but it wasn't like I hated it. It was just I felt it kind of detracted from the film a bit. It's the fact that there are times where the film deviates from its own gimmick. And by that I mean there are instances where characters physically meet up in person. And the context for those interactions does make sense. Don't get me wrong. Once again, I felt like it just took me out of, getting used to seeing all these characters have to abide by this rule, like, oh no, they have to stay on the screen, they can't do anything else. There are some extremes that some characters go to make sure that they don't leave their home, and yet at times we still see characters kind of break that. And while I do understand that some of those scenes are necessary for certain parts of the story, I would have liked to see the director try to restrict those interactions and keep the entire thing on Zoom. Overall, Family Squares is a wholesome, hilarious, and truly relevant, literal family comedy that, despite being filmed during COVID and being set during COVID, feels like the kind of film they just don't make anymore. I cannot remember the last time I saw a great ensemble family comedy. Can you? But I guess therein lies the charm. I guess sometimes it takes for someone to think outside of the box, or in this case, inside of the boxes, to restore your faith in human connection. And for that, I'm going to give Family Squares 4 stars.
These things are usually, a little juicy, but this one was a doozy.
Now, in addition to being able to view the movie, I was also extremely fortunate enough to speak with one of the actresses in it, and she also happens to be one of my favorite working actresses today, Judy Greer. And I cannot tell you how much of an honor and out-of-body experience it was. You might even see it if you watch the interview. If you want to check it out, I'll put the link down below in the description box, and hopefully you enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed watching this movie, as much as I enjoyed reviewing it, and as much as I enjoyed conducting the interview. That being said, if you want to check out the film for yourself, it is available on VOD right now, and I cannot recommend it enough. I've been telling everybody I know to go see it, and I do truly believe that anybody who does check it out will have an extraordinary time. Now, once again, if you like this video, please make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well for more new movie-related content weekly. That is pretty much all the time that I have for you guys today. And I just want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to view this video, because it truly does mean the world to me. But I have so much other stuff that I'm working on that I should probably just get back to work, right? So, until next time, I'm Dempsey Pulot, Take care.